The quiet person in the room who seems to get everything they want without ever raising their voice. Have you noticed them? While everyone else is pushing, shoving, and exhausting themselves, they're sitting there, calm as can be, watching it all unfold exactly as they planned. I remember meeting a gentleman in downtown Chicago years ago. He ran a small diner, nothing fancy. But what caught my attention wasn't his business. It was how he handled his competition. See, when a big restaurant chain opened right across the street, everyone expected him to panic, to slash his prices, maybe even close down. But he just smiled. He told me, "You know what? I've already won this battle, and I haven't even started fighting yet." 6 months later, that chain restaurant was struggling while his diner had a line out the door. His secret: he'd spent 20 years building relationships with his customers, learning their stories, their kids' names, their favorite meals. He didn't need to lift a finger to compete. He had already won the war before the first battle began. The most powerful battles in life are won long before the first shot is fired. It's not about being the strongest, the loudest, or even the smartest. It's about understanding that true power lies in preparation, perception, and patience. Most folks are out there swinging their fists at every challenge that comes their way. They're exhausting themselves fighting battles they could have won without throwing a single punch. They're like that boxer who thinks the fight is won in the ring, when really it's won in those quiet moments at the gym, in the early mornings when no one's watching, in the careful study of your opponent's style. But here's the thing that really gets me excited. This isn't just about business or competition. This is about every single aspect of your life. Your relationships, your personal growth, your financial future. Every challenge you face can be overcome with the right mindset and strategy. The greatest generals in history didn't win their battles through brute force alone. They won because they understood something fundamental about power. Real power isn't in the sword, it's in the mind that wields it. So when I tell you that you can win every battle without lifting a finger, I'm not talking about some magical thinking or passive wishful dreaming. I'm talking about a profound understanding of how success really works. I'm talking about mastering the art of winning before the game even begins. Anyone can learn it. Anyone can master it. It doesn't matter where you started or what advantages or disadvantages you were born with. What matters is your willingness to understand and apply these principles that have been working silently throughout history. That's why I want to share with you the philosophy that's been transforming lives for generations. Because once you grasp these principles, you'll never look at challenges the same way again. Now, what exactly do I mean when I talk about true power? Let me tell you something that changed my entire perspective. I was walking through an old garden once, and I noticed this tiny stream. It wasn't rushing or roaring like a river. It was just quietly, persistently flowing. But when I looked closer, I saw how over time it had carved a path right through solid rock. That's true power. Most people think power is about force, about making big moves and grand gestures. They're like the thunder that makes all the noise but doesn't actually shape the landscape. The real power, it's like that stream, quiet, constant, and absolutely unstoppable. That's what we're talking about when we discuss winning without lifting a finger. The battle isn't won on the battlefield. It's won in the preparation. Think about this. How many times have you seen someone walk into a room and immediately command attention without saying a word? They're not doing anything special in that moment. Their victory was secured long before they ever entered that room. Every single day, you're either preparing to win or preparing to lose. There's no middle ground. When you're sleeping an extra hour instead of reading, when you're watching TV instead of planning, when you're complaining instead of learning, you're preparing to lose. But when you're developing your mind, strengthening your character, building your knowledge. I met a woman once who worked in real estate. She told me something fascinating about her success. While other agents were running around trying to close deals, she spent her first year just studying the market, building relationships, and understanding her clients' needs. Her competitors laughed at her lack of immediate sales. But by year 2, she was closing more deals than any of them. And here's the kicker, she was working half as hard. That's what I mean by mental fortitude. It's not about being tough in the moment of challenge. It's about being tough enough to prepare when nobody's watching. It's about being disciplined enough to do the small things right day after day when there's no immediate reward in sight. The same people who wouldn't dream of walking into a courtroom without preparation will walk into life's biggest moments completely unprepared. They'll wing it in their relationships, improvise in their careers, and then wonder why they're not getting the results they want. Mental fortitude isn't just about being strong-minded. It's about being strong-minded enough to be patient, strong-minded enough to do the work before the work needs to be done, strong-minded enough to understand that every moment of preparation is a victory in itself. Preparation is not just about gathering information or skills, it's about preparing your character. Because when the moment of opportunity arrives, it's not your knowledge that will be tested first, it's your character. Will you be ready not just to see the opportunity, but to seize it? Will you have developed the wisdom not just to recognize the right path, but to take it? Every major decision you'll ever make, every significant challenge you'll ever face, every meaningful victory you'll ever achieve, they're all being determined right now in these quiet moments of preparation. The question isn't whether you'll face challenges. You will. The question is whether you'll have already won before they arrive. And that brings us to something even more fascinating about power and success. Because once you understand this philosophy of silent victory, once you grasp the true nature of power and preparation, you begin to see that there are certain pillars, certain fundamental truths that support every meaningful achievement in life. These pillars I'm about to share with you, they're not just concepts. They're the very foundation of what separates those who struggle their whole lives from those who seem to effortlessly achieve one success after another. And I mean effortlessly. Not because it doesn't require work, but because they've mastered these 4 essential elements. You know what most people do? They react, something happens, and they jump. Someone pushes, they push back, but strategic thinking, that's a whole different game. I remember watching a game of chess between 2 masters. One player spent 15 minutes on a single move. The amateur next to me whispered, "Why doesn't he just move already?" But I knew what was happening. The player wasn't playing one move. He was playing 15 moves ahead. That's strategic thinking in real life. It's not about what's happening right now. It's about understanding the ripple effects of every decision you make. When you walk into a room, when you open your mouth to speak, when you decide to take action or stay still, are you thinking about just that moment, or are you thinking about the chain reaction you're setting in motion? Strategic thinking without emotional mastery is like having a powerful car with no steering wheel. You've got all this potential, but you can't direct it where you need it to go. I've seen brilliant strategists fall apart because they couldn't control their emotions at crucial moments. Emotional mastery isn't about not feeling emotions. It's about not letting those emotions make your decisions for you. It's about understanding that every emotional reaction you have is a choice. When someone criticizes you, when a deal falls through, when life throws you a curveball, your emotional response isn't automatic. And once you understand that, once you truly grasp that your emotions are tools rather than masters, you've unlocked one of the most powerful secrets of effortless success. And time leverage, because this is where most people get it completely wrong. They think time management is about squeezing more activities into each day. But that's not leverage. That's just busy work. Real-time leverage is about understanding that some minutes are worth more than others. Some decisions, some actions, some moments carry more weight than all the others combined. I met a gentleman who built $1 million business working just 3 hours a day. People would ask him his secret, expecting some complex system or revolutionary method. You know what he told them? He said, I just learned which 3 hours actually matter. That's time leverage. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters most when it matters most. But the fourth pillar that ties everything together, relationship capital. And this might be the most valuable of all, because you can have the best strategy, perfect emotional control, and masterful time management, but without strong relationships, you're building a house on sand. Relationship capital isn't just about knowing people. It's about being known for adding value to people's lives. It's about understanding that every interaction, every conversation, every moment you spend with another person is either an investment or a withdrawal from your relationship account. I'll never forget this remarkable banker I met. He told me something profound. He said, in 30 years, I've never once had to chase a client or fight for business. Why? Because he spent 3 decades building relationship capital. When others were focusing on quick transactions, he was investing in long-term connections. When others were looking for what they could get, he was looking for what he could give. These 4 pillars, they work together. Strategic thinking helps you see opportunities. Emotional mastery gives you the stability to seize them. Time leverage multiplies your effectiveness. And relationship capital provides the foundation for it all to work. But here's what's truly fascinating about these pillars. They don't require any physical effort. They don't demand that you be the strongest, the fastest, or even the smartest person in the room. They simply require understanding and application. They require that you see the battlefield of life for what it really is. You want to know what the real battlefields in life are? They're not where most people are looking. They're not in the obvious conflicts, the loud arguments, or the visible competitions. The real battlefields, they're hidden in plain sight, happening right in front of us every single day. Every morning, he'd watch people rush past his store, heading to the big supermarket down the street. Most would have seen this as a problem, a battle they couldn't win. But he saw something different. He noticed these same people dragging themselves home in the evening, too tired to cook. So what did he do? He started preparing simple home-cooked meals they could take home. No advertising, no price wars, no fighting the supermarket. He just solved the problem nobody else saw. Within months, he had lines of customers every evening. See, that's what I mean by identifying your true battles. Most people are fighting the wrong fights. They're throwing punches at shadows while the real opportunities slip right past them. Every obstacle in your path isn't a wall. It's a door waiting to be discovered. But you've got to train your eyes to see it. I remember talking to a young man who was frustrated because he couldn't get ahead in his career. He kept telling me about all the office politics, the difficult boss, the competitive coworkers. I asked him one simple question: what battle are you really fighting? Turns out, he was so busy fighting for attention and recognition that he missed the real battlefield, the chance to solve problems nobody else was willing to tackle. This is where the magic of converting obstacles into opportunities comes in. Every single problem you face has hidden within it the seeds of an equal or greater benefit. That's not just positive thinking, that's a fundamental law of life. But here's the key. You've got to be willing to look for it. You've got to be willing to stand still while everyone else is running around in circles. 2 people can look at exactly the same situation and see completely different things. One sees a crisis, another sees an opportunity. One sees an ending, another sees a beginning. And here's the fascinating part, they're both right. Because what you perceive becomes your reality. I was in a small town during an economic downturn. Most businesses were cutting back, laying off workers, battening down the hatches. But there was this one entrepreneur who saw something different. While everyone else saw a town in decline, she saw a community hungry for connection. She opened a small cafe. Not just any cafe, but a place where people could gather, share stories, support each other. When others questioned her timing, she said something I'll never forget. The best time to offer hope is when people have lost it. That's the power of perception. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about seeing the complete reality, not just the surface level that everyone else stops at. It's about understanding that what appears to be a battlefield might actually be a gateway to something extraordinary. Most people spend their entire lives fighting battles that don't even matter. They're so busy reacting to what's right in front of them that they miss the bigger picture. They're throwing all their energy into pushing against doors that were meant to be pulled. They're fighting upstream when they could just as easily change their direction. And this brings us to something crucial about mastering these hidden battlefields. Because once you understand where the real battles lie, once you start seeing obstacles as opportunities, once you grasp the true power of perception, then you're ready to master something even more fundamental, the inner game. Everyone's looking for this big, dramatic moment of transformation. They want the lightning bolt, the sudden revelation, the overnight success, but that's not how the inner game works. The inner game is quiet. It's subtle, and most importantly, it's consistent. Most people think discipline means forcing yourself to do things you hate. They grit their teeth, they clench their fists, they push through with sheer willpower. But that's not discipline, that's punishment. Real discipline, it's like breathing. You don't struggle to breathe, do you? No, it happens naturally because you've aligned yourself with its rhythm. I met a successful businessman once who never seemed stressed, never seemed to be fighting himself. I asked him his secret. He smiled and said, "I stopped making deals with myself." See, most people negotiate with themselves all day long. I'll do this later. Just 5 more minutes. Maybe tomorrow. But he understood something profound. The energy you spend negotiating with yourself is more exhausting than just doing what needs to be done. Now, about building unshakable confidence, you want to know the real secret? It's not about pumping yourself up. It's not about affirmations or pep talks. Real confidence is built in those quiet moments when nobody's watching. It's built one small promise kept to yourself at a time. One small victory after another. I remember watching a master craftsman at work. Someone asked him if he ever worried about making mistakes. He looked puzzled and said, "Why would I worry? I've made all the mistakes already. I made them in practice where they couldn't hurt anyone." That's unshakable confidence. It's not about never failing. It's about knowing that you've earned the right to succeed. Every day, you're making hundreds of tiny choices. What time to wake up? What to read? Who to talk to? What thoughts to entertain? Most people think these small decisions don't matter, but they're wrong. These small decisions are everything. If you improve just 1% each day, in 1 year, you'll be 37 times better. Not 365% better, 37 times better. That's the power of compound effect. But it works the other way too. Those small negative choices, those tiny compromises, they compound just as powerfully in the opposite direction. I knew a woman who transformed her entire life by making one small decision: to wake up 30 minutes earlier each day, not to conquer the world, not to revolutionize her industry, just 30 minutes, but in those 30 minutes she read, she planned, she thought. Day after day, week after week, year after year, while others were dreaming, she was growing. While others were wishing, she was building. This is the essence of mastering the inner game. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic changes. It's about understanding that your life moves in the direction of your smallest decisions. Your confidence grows from the smallest promises kept. Your discipline strengthens with the smallest victories won. The inner game, it's not about intensity, it's about consistency. It's not about perfect decisions, it's about perfect decisions. It's not about never falling, it's about always getting back up. Not with drama, not with fanfare, but with the quiet certainty of someone who understands the power of small choices. Because once you master this inner game, once you understand how to make discipline as natural as breathing, once you build that unshakable confidence through small victories, once you grasp the incredible power of compound effect, then you're ready for something even more powerful. You're ready to master the art of strategic patience? Success, it's not just about what you do, it's about when you do it. I have watched people with incredible talents fail because they couldn't master this one critical skill. The art of timing. They had everything else. The knowledge, the skills, the drive. But they were like farmers trying to harvest before the crops were ready. Let me tell you about this remarkable real estate investor I knew. During a hot market, when everyone was buying and selling like crazy, he just sat back and watched. People thought he was afraid, thought he was missing out. But he understood something they didn't: the power of strategic patience. When the market finally corrected, when everyone else was panicking, that's when he made his moves. He bought properties for pennies on the dollar from the same people who'd been calling him a fool 6 months earlier. Timing. Not about waiting, it's about preparing while you wait. It's like the difference between a person who's paralyzed by indecision and a tiger waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. One is stuck, the other is ready. Reading situations, now that's an art form all its own. You've got to develop what I call your success sensors. They're like invisible antennae that pick up on things others miss. The slight shift in a conversation that signals an opportunity. The subtle change in market conditions that warns of trouble ahead. The quiet opening that others rush right past. I remember watching a master negotiator at work. While everyone else was talking, pushing, trying to make things happen, he just sat there, completely still, completely aware. He was reading the room like a book. When he finally spoke, his words carried more weight than all the arguments that had come before. Why? Because he understood that power lies not in the speaking, but in the listening. Not in the pushing, but in the understanding. Most people think power is about action, about doing something. But sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to stay still. It's like that ancient wisdom. Never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. I once knew a businessman who was facing fierce competition from a new company in his market. They were undercutting his prices, poaching his customers, doing everything they could to put him out of business. His advisors told him to fight back, to lower his prices, to spend more on advertising. But he understood the power of calculated restraint. He knew that his competitors were selling below cost, trying to buy market share. So what did he do? Nothing. He maintained his quality, kept his prices stable, and waited. Within a year, his competitors had burned through their capital and closed their doors. That's what I mean by calculated restraint. It's not inaction born of fear. It's inaction born of wisdom. It's the understanding that sometimes the best way to win a battle is to let your opponent defeat themselves. Water. When it meets an obstacle, it doesn't try to smash through it. It doesn't get angry or frustrated. It simply finds another path. It practices perfect patience, perfect restraint. And yet, over time, water can carve through solid rock. That's the kind of power we're talking about. Strategic patience. It's not just about waiting for the right moment. It's about recognizing it when it comes. Because when that moment arrives, when all your preparation meets the perfect opportunity, that's when everything you've been learning, everything you've been practicing, everything you've been preparing for comes together. Everything we've talked about today, the silent victories, the hidden battlefields, the inner game, the power of patience, it all comes down to this fundamental truth. Your greatest victories are won in moments no one else even notices. Remember that stream I mentioned earlier? The one carving through solid rock? That's you. Every single day, with every decision you make, with every moment of patience you practice, with every situation you read correctly, you're carving your path to success. Not with force, not with struggle, but with the unstoppable power of consistent, intelligent action. Here's what you're going to do starting tomorrow morning. When you wake up, take those first 30 minutes, your golden time. Don't check your phone. Don't jump into the world's chaos. That time is for you to read, to think, to prepare. Remember what that businesswoman did with her 30 minutes? That's your first step. Throughout your day, you're going to face challenges, obstacles, moments of decision. Instead of reacting, I want you to pause. Remember the chess master taking those 15 minutes for a single move? That's your model. Take that breath. See the whole board? Understand the real battlefield? When others are rushing, you'll be reading the situation. When others are talking, you'll be listening. When others are pushing, you'll be preparing. And when the moment is right, when you've done the work, built the relationships, mastered your emotions, and seen the opportunity that others miss, that's when you'll move. Think about that corner store owner who turned his obstacle into an opportunity. Think about that negotiator who knew the power of silence. Think about that investor who made his fortune not by following the crowd, but by waiting for the right moment. You've got everything you need right now to start winning these battles without lifting a finger. You've got your mind, you've got your understanding, and now you've got these principles. The only question is, are you ready to use them? Because here's what I know about you. Yes, you're sitting right there. You wouldn't have stayed with me through this entire message if you weren't ready for something different. If you weren't ready to stop fighting the wrong battles and start winning the right ones. If you weren't ready to transform your challenges into opportunities. Your next victory is already waiting for you. It's hidden in that problem you've been wrestling with. It's waiting in that relationship you need to build. It's sitting there in that opportunity you've been afraid to seize. And now you know how to win it. Not through force, not through struggle, but through understanding, preparation, and the perfect timing that comes from true wisdom. The time for thinking about it is over. The time for waiting is past. Your moment, it's right now. Because the battle you need to win tomorrow is won by what you do today. And you're ready. You've always been ready. You just needed to understand the game you're really playing. So go out there and win. Not with your fists, but with your mind. Not with force, but with wisdom. Win every battle without lifting a finger, because now you know how,